put the link. Hold on. Hear what I said? Let me bring somebody into the chat. Nigeria. You hear what I said? Welcome to the live. Welcome to the live. Hold on. Let me just get my echo. I've got echo here. Hold on.
Yeah, that was me. I had to take you off my phone.
Oh, that was you. All right, guys. Is anybody else hearing echo anymore? Let me turn off my echo. So I'm going to echo as well. So give me a sec. Welcome to the live. Please announce yourselves and introduce yourself. Let me know where you're from, where you hail from, who you're representing.
Peace. My name is Sincere Love to God. FBA all day. It's my first time tuning into your live. I recently came across a video that you posted on Instagram where you were breaking down some of the dynamics that's going on in parts of West Africa with and I'm drawing a blank right now, but some of the three nations.
I know Sahel, the Sahel states, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger,
exactly.
France. Yeah.
Exactly. I came across that video recently and started following you, and I saw the headline for this live here, and I joined in, fully expecting to bring the smoke, but listening to you is definitely a breath of fresh air. You know what I'm saying? You spitting facts. I can't really argue with too much of anything that you're saying, although there's maybe some disagreements here or there. One of the things I would say is when you were started to talk about the leverage that we have as foundational Black Americans in order to move the needle, and the reason why we're not able to lock in on that leverage being, I think you said, because of disunity. Based on us,
I think it's, well, yes, and it's also a mental block. I believe it's a mental block. I don't even think.
Right.
I think it's psychological.
Were you saying that the mental block and the conditioning is based on our disconnection from Africa because we don't have our language, we're not on our land, we don't have our religion?
So I'll explain it to you, and it's actually really, really simple. First thing, welcome to my platform. I know you're new to my platform. Anybody who's been on my platform for years knows where I stand on a lot of things. I don't mince words about it. I'm pro FBA. I understand what FBA means because I became a man in America. Okay, so I got there as a teenager, and I spent a decade on the East Coast, a decade on the West Coast, and also some time in the South. And I saw a lot of things. So there's a lot of experiences I've had firsthand. I've had multiple police experiences firsthand. So it's not anecdotal, it's things that actually happened to me. I've had multiple experiences with many situations that FBA people describe that Africans may not have experienced. I actually experienced them. So it obviously gave me not anymore. No, not anymore. So I was there from the 90s to the late 2000s. I got there like late 90s, and I was there for 20 years. So for me, to explain this to you is very simple. Because I was there, I was able to see something that as a Nigerian, growing up in Nigeria, I compared the mentality we have to the mentality that the Black American has, and the gap in both groups. So we have a gap, which I'll talk about later, but let me talk about the first gap. The gap for the Black American is that I looked at it and I said, after spending time there, I said, oh, you already have everything. You already have everything. You don't actually need anything from anybody to get what you want. And when I say get what you want, I'm talking about specifically if you want your reparations, if you want your land, you want your reparations, you want your freedom, you want your safety, you want all of these things. I said, no, you get things with leverage. That's how you get things, whether politically, economically, with leverage. You think you're going to continue to take this from me and not give me what I want? I'm withholding it. Till you give me what I want, you're not getting any more of this. Which is the reason why I liked what happened with the elections when they were like, listen, you want my votes? You need to give me tangibles. You don't get my vote for free. That is what leverage is. Leverage. So my thing is that when you see a group of people who already have the culture, already have the music, already have the buying power in the trillions annually, already have the fashion, already has all of these the workforce,
The influence.
the influence. You have this already, yet you are asking people to give you something. You don't have to ask. You just say, oh, no, oh, is that what you want to do? We are the primary group who play your sports. We're in the NFL. We're the dominant force in the NFL. Billions and billions of dollars generated every year. We're the dominant force in the NBA. We're the dominant force in the two main sports franchises that generated billions annually. Okay. However, when a guy like Colin Kaepernick kneels, I'm not saying that he had a plan, so we don't have to go in down that route. We won't get into the weeds with that. But the point about Colin Kaepernick is that he lit a match that people could have taken and used to do something. That was the moment where somebody comes up like Ice Cube and says, you know what, we're going to have our own league. That was the moment. Everybody, guys, come over here. This league is not a black league. It is a league owned by us. We're not precluding anybody from playing in this league. Everybody is welcome, but we own it because we are the natural resource. And we are the people who are, boom, we do that. That's what I mean by leverage. The only reason why that didn't happen, it's got nothing to do with anything else. It is in the mind. It is fear. It is the fear of Tulsa. It's the fear of Rosewood. It's the fear of all of these experiences that have happened in the past.
It's
That
the
if you
fear.
go on,
I agree with everything that you're saying. I won't argue with anything that you're saying. I would attribute the fear more so to the fear of power. Too many of our people are afraid of power. They
that is
have
an excellent point. That is an excellent point.
the responsibility that comes with taking power is where the fear is. It's not even as much as what happened in Tulsa and all of those things. Yeah, there's some psychological effect there, but the responsibility that comes with taking power, I believe that's the biggest culprit because you're absolutely right. Those of us on the grassroots who are getting on code, it's good, and we're making progress in at rapid speed. But it's just not enough of us in the masses. Like you said, we're a small minority between that 12 and 15%
Hold that
of the
thought.
country.
Great. Hold that.
Go ahead.
Hold that. Don't forget that point you just made. Keep going, but remember that point you just made about not enough. And then keep going. Don't
Right.
forget that because I want to come back to that. Carry on.
Right. So what you're saying is correct. It's just that we haven't reached critical mass with those of us who are on code with the movement and understanding our leverage and our power. It's not enough of us that are on that code just yet. You know what I'm saying? But that's the trajectory that we're on with the grassroots being able to control the narrative and all of that. But go ahead.
All right, cool. The point you made is excellent. There are not enough of us. The reason why I support FBA is I like the principle of what you're doing. That's why I support it. This was necessary 60 years ago. You're late. You should have done this 60 years ago.
Very true.
The idea that we need to clearly delineate who we actually are so that we cannot be infiltrated is critical to be able to do anything. Critical. You need to have an identity. Okay, you separated us from our African heritage, you separated us from our history. Cool. And again, this is where I go with it. The reason why you were separated from your culture, your language, your religion, your identity is so that you could be controlled. That is why it happened. Because a man that is given an identity by another man, that man who gave it owns them. Because he can change the rules when he feels like it. He can make different parameters when he feels like it. Give and take prestige or validation when he feels like it. Change the way you feel about yourself when he feels like it. But when you say, I am going to define myself for myself, then you start having some power.
Right.
That is why I like the idea of FBAs. Like, no. You're not going to tell us what we will and will not accept. You're not going to tell us what we did and didn't create. You're not going to tell us what our history is. We know when, boom. Now, the issue is here.
I want to ask you a question
Go
though
on.
about that, and I don't want to major too much in the minors, but I'm just wondering, just based off hearing what you're saying, do you understand that all of us were not brought here on a slave ship from Africa.
Of course, there were black people in America before slavery.
Right, right. So it's not just it's not just a erasure of our African history, but also our indigenous culture that we created here on this land.
100%. But you see, the thing about it is this. If I was advising as a lawyer or somebody, an advisor, I say, listen, the best chance is a clean definition. When you start fragmenting it, that is when it's easier for infiltration and confusion. Making it clean, where even a baby can understand, a dummy can understand, is that foundational Black Americans are the descendants of the slaves that were brought over that built the country. We can talk about these other things later. We need to make it clean so you can get the check. You see, if you want to get the check, when you start bringing in all these other elements, it gets easier to poke holes. We don't want to poke holes. So I'm not denying that it's true what you're saying. But you see, the problem is here. When you look at the FBI and you go back to a particular point, you have this slavery thing. You have this separation from identity thing. Even if you talk about the Africans that existed before slavery happened on American soil, who is going to teach that history? Who wrote that history? Who is going to be the person to educate people about that history? Okay? The problem you have is that regardless of how you slice this, we all came from Africa.
I agree
Regardless.
with that. I agree
So
with
even
that.
the black people that were in America first came from Africa.
Right. I say
So,
that all the time.
so it doesn't matter. It's like we're still going back home. Now, my thing is this: the block you have is purely psychological because of what you said. What you said is a very powerful statement, and I'm sure you're aware of how powerful a statement it is. But it's very powerful. We're afraid of power. What I witness in Black America is a fear of power. You already have the power, but you're afraid to take it and embrace it. You're scared because power comes with responsibility for your failures, your triumphs, and your own security. You're not used to that because you've never had it. Imagine multiple generations, 7 generations, 8 generations deep, who have never had that. And then suddenly telling them, okay, go and take your power and be responsible for yourselves. It is not an easy thing to get your head around. It is easier to wake up and say, today I'm going to protest. Today I'm going to march. Today I'm going to beg. I'm going to ask, because that's normal. You're used to that. Now, I'm going to flip it a little bit. We as Africans also have a mental problem. We have a mental issue, but it's not the same as yours. You see, with ours, we were on African soil. We never left. What happened to us is that they came into our communities and into our country and psychologically turned us against ourselves, so that they didn't even need to be there for us to control each other on their behalf. The level of psychological damage we have as Africans is beyond what you guys have experienced. Like, it is on a level that is, they're not even there. They're not even there. Do you know how crazy that is? These guys have not been there for 60 years?
That coincides with what we're saying about the American problem also, because another thing that I often say is that if if the white supremacists left the earth tomorrow, we would still have white supremacy the next day. It's pretty much on autopilot across the
Yeah, no,
planet.
no, 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 no. Yes and no. Yes and no. Do you know this is the biggest difference for me? I'll tell you what the biggest difference is, in my opinion. Because of the dynamic and the nature of the Black American experience, you, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, so this is my opinion, you have the best understanding and the deepest understanding of what white supremacy actually is and what blackness actually is. And that is through necessity, because you needed to do that to actually survive. We had the luxury of not being under that kind of pressure. So when you're in Africa, we don't engage with Black identity in the same way, because we know our villages, we know our names, we know our heritage, we know, so we don't engage with it in this way of like, I'm seeking something. We're not seeking anything, it's just there. The Black American is seeking knowledge, which is why, do you know who the biggest Pan-Africans are in the world, in my opinion? The most
FBA.
knowledgeable Jamaicans,
Well, not
Caribbeans.
not not Jamaicans, Rastafarians.
Yes, but yeah, I know what you mean. But they're from the Caribbean, like they're in the Caribbean. Haitians, Jamaicans, people from those people, of the ones of the people, all the black people I've met in the world
But think
are
about
the
this though.
most.
When you
Go
say
on.
that, but think about this. I don't mean to cut you off, but there's a reason why Marcus Garvey wasn't successful in the Caribbean. Marcus Garvey had to get his movement going here because we were more receptive to the message. Again, the Caribbean, I understand what you're saying, but it's not a widespread thing in the Caribbean. It's just amongst the Rastafarians who are, like the conscious community over here.
I mean, I get you. No, you're right. You're right. No, for sure, for sure. It is a community within the group. Yes, you
Right.
are right. And to be honest, the Jamaicans and the Caribbeans have a lot more in common with us in terms of the issue that we have is much more similar to us. Like the desire to assimilate. And I think that is the biggest problem Africans have is this romanticization of the people that actually colonized us. And that is a problem. And now the other layer to it, which is also a thing that Black America don't have to deal with, is there is a level of hyper poverty and suffering that the African goes through on a daily basis that prevents them from contemplating, even contemplating these higher conversations. Because guys are literally trying to live through the next 24 hours. Like they're not even contemplating the kinds of stuff we're talking about. Like if you know the worst projects in America is paradise compared to some places in Nigeria. It's
Right.
paradise.
Right.
So I think for that reason, the average Nigerian or people in certain parts of Africa, they don't even have the capacity to start thinking about stuff like this because they're simply trying to survive. And I don't believe that that is an accident. I think it is by design to prevent an actual uprising because people are too busy trying to survive. But I think the craziest thing for me and the whole point of this conversation that we're having is what is missing on both groups. So where I was going with the African is that what is missing for us is the way in which Black America has been able to articulate what is actually necessary for unity and upliftment. We have people who've done it. So example, that Captain Traore is doing it now. Gaddafi did it, Lumumba did it, Sankara did it, Nkrumah did it. But the problem is that whenever those guys come about, they kill, they kill them. Like
Right.
they're gone, you know? And we haven't been able to create a community from those people like you guys have been able to do. So we haven't got a community like the FBA, the way you guys do, which is what we actually need. We need that kind of community where there is an active, aggressive yearning for a unified mindset. We don't really have that, which is the reason why you see so many African immigrants in America or in the UK or France so quick to assimilate and then to point fingers at you folks because we don't have the same mentality. We have a more of a, how do I put it? Every man for himself mentality. It's every man for himself. It's like, listen, you get what you can, you get out there, you survive. So once you've gotten out of Nigeria, that's already step one. Now I'm going to become as big as I can become, make as much money as I can, do whatever. So we come to America with a completely different mindset. The level of aggressive work ethic of a Nigerian is unmatched. It's unmatched because his brain is not thinking the same way. He's viewing it more like, I got out. I'm here now. Nothing is standing in my way. The society is saying that the Black American is the bottom of the barrel. I'm not that. I don't want to be that because I'm looking at the top. They're going to give me this money to say that. What do you want me to say? That is the mentality. And I can tell you that for a fact. Let me tell you, I defy you. There is nowhere you will go in the United States of America that you will say a homeless Nigerian. Nowhere. It doesn't exist. A Nigerian would rather sell dope than be homeless. So you'll find Nigerian criminals. You'll find criminals. You'll find all of that. It's a joke that we have. We have this joke, and the joke is it's true. It's facts. Nigerians are the most educated. They always have a degree, so everybody's got a degree. But the point is, if you go to Russia, England, United States, France, everywhere, when you go and you look at the homeless, none of them will be Nigerian. Because once a Nigerian has gotten out of Nigeria, his mentality has nothing to do with anything other than survival and reaching the top. He doesn't care about his blackness, doesn't care about any other. That is secondary to, I want to win. I must win. Now, some people would say that's a good thing, but I say, and I'll let you respond to this. I say that is something that can be very easily weaponized. It's very easy to weaponize that mentality, because I feel that mentality is tied very closely to colonialism. Because when the colonizers came to my village and came to my communities, do you know what they did? They did the same thing that they did on the plantations in America. They pick certain families, pick certain groups, uplift them, send them to Oxford and Cambridge, educate them, give them cars, give them all of these things, and make them feel that they are better than other Africans in Africa. And then those Africans themselves, then when those Europeans have left, they then look down on the Africans that are there. And to this day, many of those families are still seen as the upper class in Africa. Go ahead, please.
I don't really disagree with that assessment at all. My question would be, in your opinion, as a Nigerian brother, what is the antidote to that mentality in order to create those communities that you say are lacking on the
Excellent
continent?
point. Excellent point. That is the core of this life. The antidote to that is the conversation you and I are having. Notice you already have the antidote. Remember what you said at the beginning when you got on here? I came here to bring the smoke. Then you listen to me and you're like, oh, okay. There are people like me that exist who are Nigerians and Africans. They exist. But we are separated. We're scattered. We don't have, like I said, we do not have this FBA group thing. So there is no community for people who think like me, who are together, to then go to FBA and say, yo, this is our group, this is your group. How do we work together? We don't have that.
I think you know this, but I just want to say it for the people that might not be clear on the live. FBA is not a group. FBA is a term that refers to our lineage, our unique heritage and history here.
Right. I mean, it's a lineage.
organization.
Right. But I mean, it's how do I put it? Let me rephrase that. It's an identifier.
Right.
It's an identifier. You can I identify as I am part of this lineage. Now, there is no lineage that I can look to in Africa that would be able to do that, because we are so many tribes. There are thousands of tribes.
Do you think that's part of the problem? The tribalism?
Yes, it is part of the problem. That is the way that we were colonized. We were colonized because of tribal differences. So you could then go to one tribe. You know that thing that they keep saying, that black people sold blacks into slavery?
Right.
That is not true. Do you know what happened? The real way of looking at it is that if France is fighting Germany, and somebody from the outside says, we're going to give Germany weapons to fight France, and then Germany then captures some French troops and sells French troops to some other group, do you think the Germans are thinking, yeah, we sold
Telling
whites
our
to
own
them?
people. Right.
They're not thinking, they're not my people.
Right.
Because we weren't thinking racially. We're all
Right.
black. You guys brought race. We don't think racially. We're like, that's my enemy.
Right.
I'm just selling. I don't give a damn about these people. I take them. But they're not thinking about blackness. It's because you then put this black thing onto this conversation. All of a sudden, a white supremacist will come, well, you sold blacks into black. Guys, you guys brought race. We were just selling our enemies. That's all it was. I'm not saying it was right to do that, but that's what it was. Even when selling people from your own kingdom, You're not thinking about it on a skin thing. It's like, I don't, this is just a low level, low class, but take him. I don't care. Again, I'm not saying it's right, but the
No, I
racial,
understand exactly what you're saying. It's true. It's true what you're saying. And the other component to that is you can't point to any African nation who is rich off of that slave trade today. You know what I'm saying? There's no thriving society of Africans based off the foundation being the slave trade, them doing business with the Europeans.
not at
It
all.
doesn't. It doesn't exist.
Not at all. It doesn't exist. And I think that's a very good point. And let us get into the solution, like you asked. You asked the solution. So this is what I believe. Okay. Define, divide, and conquer for me. Just define it in your
It's just
thoughts.
basically exploiting the differences amongst people who should have some things in common. Just exploiting those differences and kind of like you said, uplifting one over the other. You know, with whatever resources and leverages you may have to do so.
Okay. Okay. Now, why is it so hard for us to see that they're doing the same thing now?
Explain.
So you see, in order for us to be able to do what we need to do as Africans, this is the reason why I said that we need FBA and we need Black diaspora. You're behind enemy lines. You're there. The amount of pressure and influence you can have on your government to change is immense. To change the way that they relate to Africa is huge. The amount of power and influence you have to make it difficult for them to drop drone strikes on Sudan or Somalia is huge. If it mattered to the community, the amount of protection your community can give to Captain Traore and the Sahel Alliance is huge. Huge. Can you imagine if FBA identified with them and then made them celebrities in America? Imagine the amount of safety that would provide for them doing what they're doing in Africa. If they became celebrities in the UK, celebrities in France, celebrities in America, and those groups started identifying with them as like, you see the principles that these guys stand for? That is actually what we stand for what we are fighting for. That is one side of it. Now, the flip side of it is what has already happened in my community. I know that you're new to my community, so you don't know. A lot of people in my community, the reason why they come here is not me simply saying that forget reparations, forget all of that, leave. It's not that. It's saying that, listen, you are better equipped to get what you want if you know your heritage and you know your history. You are far stronger and able to do what you said they can't do. You know that thing about a fear of power? You become equipped to have that power or to take that power when you have that level of dignity and pride and honor in your heritage and in yourself. It becomes easy to do that. When you've been stripped of those things that you don't have any clue about your culture, about the kings and the queens and the people that you're descended from, and all of these things, it becomes very, 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 very difficult,
Let me
especially when,
respond.
huh?
Let me respond because I don't want to
Go on,
forget. I don't want to forget what I
go on,
want
go
to
on, go on,
say
go ahead,
because these things kind of tie in together.
go on.
Man, damn it! I feel like I forgot the first point that you made. Jesus. But as far as the identity,
Hmm.
I understand what you're saying, but I think it would be a mistake. Okay, I remember the first part now. The first part is when you said us being able to identify with the movement that they're trying to get going on in West Africa and all that, and us uplifting those leaders and making them celebrities in the West and all of that. I don't disagree that that would be a good thing, but I think at this point, at this stage where we are, it would be putting the cart before the horse. And that goes with the second part of the point that you just made, which I kind of disagree with.
Hmm.
It would not benefit us to skip over all of the history, the unique history that we have here, to identify with some ancient African identity that was stripped away from us centuries ago. There's
Right.
power. There's power in
Hmm.
our cultural ethnicity that we have here that we can
Yes.
embrace that doesn't take anything away from Africa or that part of our, you know,
Right.
our ancient history. You know what I'm saying? But we
Right.
have been here so long. We do have a unique history here
Yeah.
that is very powerful that shouldn't just be skipped over.
And I'm going to explain to you what I agree with you. I don't disagree with that. I want to explain to you why I'm not saying to skip it over. When I say what I'm saying, it is not forget your history, your specific history as an FBA, and focus on your ancient African history. I am saying your ancient African history and current affairs in Africa give context to your history. And it gives you the kind of context that your history no longer revolves around oppression and pain. FBA history in America, no matter what you've done, is consistently linked to pain and oppression. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's the music, the culture, the arts, the poetry. It
It's
is
been a
const-
response. It's been a
Yes, it's a
response to the
response.
oppression.
It's an amazing response, but it is constantly linked to this. And all I'm saying is that, listen, that stuff is amazing and it dominates the world now. It is world culture, basically. You define world culture. But by giving you the context of your African history onto that culture, empowers you to understand how to, basically, it's like that block that we were talking about
I agree
of
with
the
you.
fear of power. You then understand that there is a funny thing that white supremacists use a lot, and they use it to insult black people when they say we was kings.
Yeah, that Kangs, yeah.
Kangs, yeah. I love it. I want to make t-shirts of it. I love it. I love it. That concept, do you know why they say that? It hurts them. You're not supposed to have any connection to anything like that. And when they say that, because the biggest fear is that the FBA embraces their royalty. You see, my belief is the fact that you are the best of our bloodline. Not only did they take the strongest, only the strongest survived. Only the strongest survived and reproduced. The DNA, it is the best of the bloodline. So my concept of it is that to then look at yourselves in any kind of negative light creates a mindset that then makes it difficult to do the things that I believe you can and should do.
I agree with you. Listen, I did a broadcast. You know, I have a YouTube channel on here as well. I did a broadcast called I think the title was "Are FBAs Still African?"
Mm,
And I was breaking down, you know, pretty much what you're saying, essentially what you're saying here. And
mhm,
so that connection is still there, and our identity is not strictly tied to what happened to us. You know,
mhm,
and I agree with you that the context is absolutely necessary. I have Africa tattooed on my arm. You know, this comes from
mhm.
Anthony Browder's book. You know what I'm saying? That is a part of who we are. You know what I'm saying? And
I'm going to tell you, okay, I want to tell you something a little, this is a little, it's not scary, but it's something that I know a lot of my community don't think about, but it's a different way of looking at things. And it is called anticipation. Africans were bamboozled because we had excess. We had too much, abundance of resources, agriculture, land, water, all of these things. Europeans developed and themselves because they had scarcity. So a lot of their laws and their practices and the amount of wars and killing that they did is because they were fighting for dominance over scarcity. Before technology, you could farm land that you couldn't farm. There was just scarcity. It was cold for most of the years, freezing.
Baron,
Crops would die. I mean, there were so many things that these guys were fighting against. So they developed this mentality of conquering and going out. And we did not even bother with we went and just gave people stuff. We
right?
just want to give you for free. We're like, oh, take this technology, take this food, take this, just to just give people stuff because we didn't. Now, that creates a culture of always looking ahead for the next potential catastrophe. and planning very carefully so that when it happens, you are already prepared. I am here to tell you today, Africa is the future. America is the past. Africa is the future. They know that. That is the reason why they've been fighting so hard to get a foothold in Africa, because they know it is the future. Saudi Arabia are doing it. Russia is doing it. China is doing it. France is doing it. America is doing it. Why is everybody fighting over Africa? Now, my point is this. If I can get people to not look at that, don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain, fight over here while I'm taking all the stuff over here. By the time they've all gone to Africa and run Africa, you will then be asking them permission to go to Africa. This is not just about you, it's about us. It's a double-edged sword, because we're letting people into Africa willy-nilly. Whereby in 10, 20 years' time, they will be calling the shots on who can and cannot move in Africa and act like all of this stuff never happened. Colonialism never happened. Slavery never happened. So my point is that there is some selfishness in me for what I'm saying, is that I can see the future. I know what is going. I know what's going on. This is the ultimate bamboozle. You ripped everybody off. You took people over to America. You got them to build up your empire there. You enjoyed that empire for 500 years. Now that the empire is crumbling, you want to go back to the place you took them from and build your new empire in Africa that you control. That's what's going on. You will listen. Maybe you may not be alive to. That is what is happening.
I mean, you can see it. The writing is on the wall. The writing is definitely on the wall.
That's what's happening.
Do you think the Russian alliance is genuine, or you think they should proceed with precaution?
The Russian alliance is genuine, but nobody does anything for free. Right. Russians are not doing this because they're your friend. They're doing it because of what they want. The difference between the Russians and the Chinese when they deal with Africa is that they have more respect. That is the difference. That's it. It's still the same motivation. It's like, look, it is for their own interests. But you have to look at the history that Russia never colonized.
Is it mutually beneficial, though?
Always mutually beneficial. Always. Never colonized us. Always build things for us that we can use. It's always, basically, every relationship we've had with Russia, we improve. We actually improve. We actually have better resources, better. Go and look at what China did in Senegal and get back to me. Just go and look at what they did in Senegal. Look at Senegal today. They built Senegal. They didn't colonize them. Everybody's like, well, now China owns Senegal. I'm like, China know that, listen, if Senegal say we're not paying you, what are they going to do, invade Senegal? What are they going to do? Yes, they built it. They could just be like, oh, we're not going to pay you for what you built. Are you going to invade them and take your bridges and take your roads and take your hotels? No. The reason why China does that is that it's a very different kind of diplomacy. China works on, look at what I did for you. You want to work with me because I'll continue to do for you. That's the way that they operate. They realize that I'm building your houses, your roads, and your things cheaper than you can get them built anywhere else. Why would you screw us over and be dealing with people who are just going to rip you off and not going to build anything for you? That's the mentality. That's what they do. Russia is a whole different ballgame. I mean, those guys, this is the reason why I say about Russia is a weird one, because let me be honest with you. I know that this is the thing that gets my channel dinged always. Those guys are the best allies we ever had, man. Like, they really are. Like, when you just look at what these guys have done in the fight against colonialism, fight against imperialism, building of infrastructure, resources, and these guys are like literally the best outside of Africa allies that Africa has ever had. So the reality of things is that when we look at the direction in which we're going, when I say this is because I do not believe that either of us can get what we want alone. I really don't. I don't believe that Black America is going to get what it wants without Africa. African immigrants, because of the way African immigrants are. We need to get on side. That's why I want the unity. We
I would
have to
just
get on
preface it.
side.
I agree. I would just preface it by saying, the like-minded individuals. And I think for the most part, those of us who are tapped into this identifier, FBA identifier, for the most part, it's of the clowns that come in your chat like that was here earlier. Most of us feel that way. Anybody who is on code, come on. You know what I'm saying? We cool. Anybody who is on code, a brother like yourself, we don't have no problem. We definitely want to work with people internationally. We understand that we benefit from that. There's power in numbers. We want to be able to do international trade and stuff like that. It just has to be mutually beneficial, and it has to be
Now you're talking. You see, now this is the kind of talk I like. That is what I promote. It's business. This is business.
right.
It's not emotional. It's not personal. It's business. The way that this needs to be delineated is that FBA needs to clearly define themselves. This is who we are. Anybody that wants to work with us, you need to abide by these principles. This is, if you don't believe in these things, we can't work with you.
Right.
That's it. It's that simple. It's
Right.
not rocket science. That
Right.
way, you can work with white people. You can work
Anybody,
with Latinos.
everybody can't go, and that's amongst all groups. Everybody can't go. All
That is
FBAs ain't gonna be on code. All the Nigerians ain't gonna be on code. All the Latinos ain't, But there's gonna be in every group. There's a 5%, a 10%, and an 85%. You know what
right,
I'm saying? You have 5% of the people who's gonna be on code with the movement all the way down, 10
right,
toes. You got 10% who's gonna try to exploit.
right.
You got, what I'm saying, the 10% that's going to try to, be conniving and run scams and do, snaky shit like that. Then you got 85% who just don't know what's going on. They
I
don't
don't know
really
what's
have an
going on. Right, right,
understanding.
right,
You know what I'm saying? And so we got to
right.
find those 5% in each of our groups, and that's who needs to link up. So we don't need no riffraff in the mix.
Yeah, but it starts with having, which is why I keep saying people who are against FBA, the problem is guys like the guy that was in my chat. That's the
Right.
issue because they present an image of FBA that then puts potential people that could support off because they come in with this sort of energy that is like, dudes, where are you going to go with that? Like, you think that you're going to win with like a little? You're not. You can't. Like, you need to create a system. This is the thing. This does not mean anything in what we're dealing with. It means nothing. This is how you get infiltrated. This is how you get bamboozled because they start holding up people that have this and saying that they're one of you.
So
That is out
if,
the window.
if it's not this, then what is it?
If it's not this,
Because I agree with you. But
no,
if it's
no,
not
it
this,
is.
then
It's
what is
what
it?
we've already established. It is ideology.
Right. It's here.
Exactly. You need to have the clear parameters laid out. This is what it is. You have to believe in these things. If you don't believe in these things, we cannot rock with you. It is that simple. It doesn't matter if you're white. Some of the most supportive FBA people can be white. It doesn't matter what race you are. It is this racial
Business.
obsession that makes it easy for you to to do divide and conquer. That is what makes it easy for that to happen. Because all of a sudden you have all of these groups coming in that have nothing to do with FBA whatsoever or that lineage, who can present themselves as speaking for that group. Once you identify that, no, this is ideological. So can you imagine this? Imagine, let me give you an example. Imagine if you found a group of white female pro FBA people who started talking the talk properly.
Got to really stretch the imagination,
Do
but
you
I'm with
know
you.
the damage that would do? Do you really believe that they don't exist? Because I've met them, but FBA would never
True.
even entertain that conversation. They would never even entertain that conversation. But my point is that you need to start playing tactically. This is what was done to us. They will literally get you. There are bigger white supremacists who are black than white supremacists. There are more staunch black white supremacists than white supremacists. That's how you do these things. It's ideology based. Once you lay it out and people really begin to understand. See, I'm not. I really am not. I don't believe in like the racial thing, and I know it is a man-made creation. But once you really start understanding that and you start identifying people's essence and you start playing the game correctly and you start looking and saying that, yo, if we get a guy that really understands what it is that we're trying to do and we get them on side, we're winning now. We've got billionaires now. We've got millionaires now. We've got people who are ready. Because you know why? Those people do not have the fear of power that you do because they're already in power. They have no fear. They know what power is. They have no fear.
Indeed. Indeed. Indeed.
So,
Indeed.
so that is where I mean, look, that is a bit advanced. So I'm not saying that needs to happen right now. That's a bit advanced. But I think, first of all, there needs to be a delineation and a unity of just Africans and FBA people and all those who are on code and say, listen, guys, we need to work together. We need to start weeding out people who are undermining the movement and undermining what these guys are trying to do. We have to be actively identifying these people. We can't just let things slide where somebody just says something and you just let it slide. You can't let that happen. That is important and that is on us. It's not really on you, it's on us as Africans. Africans need to take that responsibility of like, look, if a Nigerian says something slick, we have to take the responsibility of calling it and saying, that's not us. That's him. He said that or she said that. That's not us. The head of the opposition is a Nigerian woman in the UK now. She's
Right.
She's one of the biggest white super. Like this woman is like,
Yes. I know
she's
exactly what you're talking about.
She's like a cartoon. Kemi Badenoch. She's a
Yeah.
cartoon character. It's like Uncle Ruckus, female Uncle Ruckus. Like it's a
Right.
cartoon.
Right.
I'm like,
they've created her in a laboratory.
yeah, it's like a lab creation. Like like literally everything she says is like, yo, this is like a script. It's like a script. I look at somebody like that and I say, you see, it is on us to denounce that actively and just be like, yo, you see this? This is not Nigeria. This is not, cut that off. We just have to identify that and cut that off. But the problem is there's a lot of people who think that way. So there's a lot of Nigerians who actually think that way. So it becomes a little bit difficult because you've got a lot of people in the community who actually agree with her. And that is where things get challenging. So my thing about my community, like, in fact, I know you've heard about my handbook. I created the Back to Africa handbook. It's an ebook, particularly for this kind of thing. And I created it it was actually my community who asked for it. So they messaged me and said, listen, can you make something that can give us just information if we want to visit or move? So I created it. And in creating it, I started seeing two different factions come at me. One faction who were really grateful, and another faction who's saying that, why are you telling us to come back to Africa? We don't want to go there.
I just seen that in the comments, and I understand it to a certain degree, but I don't hear you saying everybody just needs to pack up and go to Africa. What I hear you saying is ultimately, you know what I'm saying, in the long term, we still have to look at that prospect as being something viable for us, because at the end of the day, look, as foundational Black Americans, look, this what a lot of people who do use the identifier, I think, get mixed up. This is our ethnicity and our heritage, you know, based on what we've been through and over the last 400 or 500 years or so. But at
Okay, hold on one second. Hold on one
just let me
second.
finish that thought.
Okay, go on.
But at the end of the day, we still are global people. You know what I'm saying? We're not just confined to one specific geographic location. This is our planet.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And Africa is still the richest part of the planet as far as resources are concerned. So to just X that completely out, that doesn't make any sense. Like I said earlier, to me, it's putting the cart before the horse to think that we're going to get up and do that right now. But we got short-term goals and we got long-term goals.
Right.
And the long-term goal is the planet.
Right. I agree with you. And I guess what I'm saying is that I don't view it as putting the cart before the horse. I view it as giving context to the horse that you're trying to drive through the gates. You see, the thing is, you know what you have to do. You are defining your group, your lineage, and you define these things. These are what our goals are. I'm saying that there are certain tactics and strategies that increase the likelihood of success. And those tactics are very simple, and it's called coalitions and alliances. Without coalitions and alliances, there is no war in history that has ever been won without coalitions or alliances. It's just never happened. Like everybody, even with your enemy, you're like, well, I guess the enemy of my enemy is my friend. You ally for the war, and then you go your separate ways.
Right.
The problem with FBA, and why I'm saying that it's an okie doke, which is where divide and conquer comes into it, is that there needs to be an understanding that you need to figure out who your allies are and identify a way of working with those allies to improve the chances of you getting what you want. See, for example, like during the conversation that we've been having, CNAG, I believe, is another FBA guy. The energy of his or her, I don't know if it's a he or she, of that mindset is part of the issue that we're going to get around, whereby there is nothing I say that is positive. Nothing I say is going to be good. It is simply a case of, we do not want you to talk about us. We do not want you to be involved with us. We do not want you to have anything to do with us. You don't know what we are going through. You do not understand don't speak, blah, 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 so on and so forth. Now, that is fair enough. Everybody has a right to feel the way that they feel. Part of the reason why I actually say the things that I say is that I had an understanding when I was in America that these guys do not see the difference when they treat me the way they treat me. They don't ask me for my ID card.
That's not the question, though. Now, I understand the pushback that you get from that, because you're correct. They don't see the difference between us, but the difference is how we see them. And you explained that earlier, so I know you understand that. You know what I'm saying?
No, exactly.
They look at us the same, but we look at them a little different.
Yes, and that is where these conversations matter. You see, the fact that we both understand that, and we're coming to the understanding that, look, this is divide and conquer, because to them, we're the same. Like there's no difference. The way that we are manipulated is different, because they understand the differences in our cultures and where we're from geographically. But we are exactly the same. Like there is no difference. So till we understand that we've got to figure out a way to work together for our unified goals, we're going to have a problem. Because the end game, as I said, the end game is going to be Africa, period. That is the end game. FBA need to also appreciate that, look, man, even if you get the reparations check and you get all of these things,
when
is that going to happen? When is that going to happen? And how much will you have lost by then? You cannot be looking in one bucket. What is going on over there is happening today. It is happening today. And my concern with this is that we will both lose. You see, I believe that without you, it is going to be very difficult for the Africans to understand what is happening to them, because you control culture. If I can get FBA on side because you control culture, all of a sudden fashion changes, hip hop changes, poetry changes, sports changes. People will start talking things in a way that nobody can ignore it anymore. Like, guys, come on. Everybody needs to get on side now. We can't be We're in Africa now. People are rapping like you. People are dressing like you. People are calling each other. I don't want to say it on here because I don't say it on here, but you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
That's what guys are doing in Africa. Where are we learning that from? Where are we getting that attitude from? Where are we getting that from? It's the same thing that is destroying your community that is now coming into our communities. And we're not even in America. And that is my point, is that I'm saying that, look, man, the amount of influence and power that that Black American has is so immense that if the two groups can figure out a way to work in unison, a lot can be achieved without diminishing what it is you want to get. Because there's a lot that you want and need. But there is a way to do this whereby I don't have to look at a community, which is Africa, that is getting completely sold up it's ridiculous now. At this point, I don't even know what to say anymore. Like I'm just looking at the situation. I'm like, yo, if it wasn't for the Sahel Alliance and what those guys are doing,
You would have
look
no
at my
hope.
country. Look at Nigeria. Look at what we're doing. It's ridiculous. We're taking loans and 100 million here, selling out here, sanctioning it. It is ridiculous. We are in the midst of the worst depression in my lifetime in Nigeria, in my life history. And actually, they say it is the worst since independence. So, from my point of view, I'm like, yo, I feel that these kinds of conversations is not really about me telling you as an FBA to forget about your cause. Your cause is paramount. That's number one. I'm saying, what can I do and what can my community do to help that? And in so doing, your community do to help what I'm doing.
I think you and I are in agreement. You know, there are people who are gonna feel how they feel. You know, they don't want they're not looking for that. They don't trust any type of alliances or whatever the case may be. Look, man, my thing is this: we have no permanent enemies and we have no permanent allies. We only have permanent interests. And so when our interests align with each other, and it makes
Mhm.
sense for us to link up, and we both are bringing something to the table that is mutually beneficial, let's get it popping.
Let's do it. So, do you have a platform? Are you on YouTube? Like, what's do you have
Yeah,
anything?
yeah, yes,
Okay.
sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. I'm at Sincere Love the God. I don't know if y'all can see it on the screen.
All right.
At Sincere Love
Let
the God.
everybody know. Let everybody know. Or type it in the chat so people know where to find you.
Yeah, Sincere Love the God on all social media platforms, and that includes YouTube as well.
Okay. 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 Where's your primary platform? Instagram, YouTube. What's your
Instagram and
primary?
YouTube. Instagram and YouTube.
Okay. 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 Well, listen, man. Thank you for coming on. You brought a
Thank
lot of
you.
information. We are not enemies. We are definitely allies. We're brothers. We're trying going for the same goals. And I think more conversations like this is only going to help us, where people know that there are people like myself who are from Africa that want nothing but the best for FBA and nothing but success for what it is that you guys are trying to do. And but at the same time, a belief that the divisions that are beginning, well, not even beginning, that exist between us is detrimental to both groups. And that is just my position. I know some people might disagree with that,
Right.
but I just feel like I do not like this rhetoric that I keep seeing, where I see FBA attacking Africans as a group. I have a problem with that.
Yeah, it's time to go, but I wouldn't. To me, that's not what I see. That's not what I see
Okay.
happening. You know what I'm saying? I think we do are careful to make a distinction between what we call tethers, and I know people don't like that word, but we
Mhm.
that word is what makes the distinction that we're not
Okay.
talking about all Africans.
Okay. Okay.
But I appreciate you having me on.
No
You
problem.
are my brother. You know what I'm saying? Much respect to you. Keep doing what you do, and you know I'm a new subscriber. I'll be checking you out.
Okay, man. Thank you so much. All
All
right.
right, peace.
Later. All right. Great, great, great. I see